Hey, how you guys doing this morning? My name's Clay. I'm from Boston, and I write sometimes for Stefan's Forces of Geek, and also Dig Boston, up in Boston, comic book panel every week. And how many people here are familiar with John Lancie's work? You know him as Q from Star Trek, and most recently as a character on My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, Discord, and it is my pleasure to introduce to you Mr. John Lancie.
Can you all hear me? All right, let me tell you a little bit about what I've been up to. I just finished a series of concerts in Princeton and in Philadelphia. I do a lot of concert work. I've written a lot of shows for symphony orchestras. It's one of my passions, and I've been doing that for years. I just came from editing yesterday the documentary that we're doing for My Little Pony. And I'll tell you how I got involved in that. For those of you who are going to ask me a question like, is Star Trek coming, or is Q coming back to Star Trek? The answer is no. What else? I don't know. Seems to be a lot of other things, but what, do you have any questions? Let's get right to the questions. Yeah.
You played Q and you played Eugene Bradford on Days of Our Lives. Which was the richer role to play?
Eugene Bradford.
Why?
I had a great time. I was brought on to play. For those of you who don't know, I was brought on to play. I got a call. I had been at Universal for a couple of years, and one of the producers at Universal moved over to Days of Our Lives, and she called me up and she said, "John, we need a psychopath." and it's 1 week's work. You don't have to audition, which is a huge compliment. Okay. So I took a look at the show and a couple of days beforehand, and I went, well, what they want is a psychopath, but what they need is a comedian. The show just is really sort of, that. So I thought, well, I can be a psychopath with a sense of humor. So I did that, and they were not expecting it, and 5 days later when I left, walking out to the parking lot, the producer ran up to me and said, "We've got to have you. You've got to come back. You're coming back. We've got to figure out a way for you to come back." And I said, "Well, I am a kidnapping. I was the red herring, so they made me the worst person. You know, kidnapping, pedophile, you know, extortionist. I mean, I said, I don't know how you're going to. You painted yourself into a corner." She goes, "It's soap operas. We'll figure it out." So I came back and I did what I had been doing, sort of a Juilliard, and almost got thrown out for. Is that I was spoofing everything. So I spoofed the soap opera, and we laughed and laughed and laughed, and I had 3 years of laughing. It reminded me of like when I was a kid in high school. I mean, I'm sure many of you had the same experience in high school. My idea of a good day in high school was it funnier than yesterday? That was my idea of a good day, and not whether I had done my homework, but just whether today was more fun than yesterday. So I'm being somewhat cavalier about it. Obviously, Q had more to do with my career than Days of Our Lives. But a lot of people, a lot of actors, you know, like Dustin Hoffman and people like that what's his name? In any case, a lot of actors started out on soap operas, and I in no way detract from that time. I had a wonderful time. You know what? Let's close the door so I don't end up hearing his conversation. Okay, next question. Yes.
When you were cast for the part of Q in Star Trek, how much of the character had they already established that they wanted, and how much did you bring into that character when you came in for it?
Did you all hear that? Yeah. Oh, you did? Oh, good. Casting is really sort of an interesting thing. If everybody had the same lines and we just went right down this line here, and they all of you had to read the same thing. Very quickly, those of us who would be watching would go, oh, that's the person who's better. That's the person who's better with that material, and it's usually because they brought themselves to the role. Okay. Now, this was a role that was easy to bring myself to. You know that outfit with me in the judge's outfit? I just brought that from home. There was a lot of this in the house. Take it up to the kids. So, yeah, I brought myself to the role. Now that doesn't mean, but it has to be written so you can bring yourself to it. And the yourself, is going to be different. I mean, there are lots of characters that are not really great for me, but that was obviously one that was. Yes, in the back. Someone in the back. Oh. Nobody in the back?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
What was your favorite incarnation of Q? The Napoleonic general, the judge, the Starfleet officer, the Civil War guy? What was your favorite thing to do with him? Oh yeah, the swashbuckler too. Buckling swashes.
Well, you know what? I've not been asked that question. I haven't thought. I think of it as sort of in its totality, and I've never thought of them separately. I can tell you the 21st century soldier, that silly styrofoam outfit I was wearing was horrible. I thought that I would have liked to have seen myself do the soldier, the military guy, a little bit longer. The Robin Hood thing was good, but the problem is that I associate these with shows. So like the Robin Hood, I go, oh, well, that sort of was fun, but I didn't think it was a very good episode. So, it goes back and forth like that. Where I saw Q go from, in its totality, from, all the facets, whereas the last show, All Good Things, where I had over, whatever it was, 7 years or so, had 6 opportunities, and I had created 6 facets, okay, like on a stone, a facet, and now it was an opportunity to sort of polish those up, and then to add 1 or 2 more, and that, for me, was the best, pulling together of all the episodes for me.
Could I follow
Yes.
up to that, Joe?
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, you've also, since we're at a comic book convention, wrote a Star Trek Next Generation manual, and also worked on developing Q more with Peter David. Is there anything you'd like to share with us about adding different facets to the character as far as those two?
The thing which I did with Peter David, and they asked me to do the show, and then I said, and this is sort of true of all of the actors. We don't know the show nearly as well as you do. Actually, the fans know the show better than anybody. And then there's the writers, but the writers don't know all of everybody else's writing. So the fans are the one. I said I don't feel comfortable enough to write an entire story about Star Trek. I just don't know it well. But what I will do is write the inner dialogue of Q. So that was my participation in that book. which was a lot. But you know, whether Worf did this and you know, and the Cardassians or whatever their names are, no idea, no idea. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have any amusing stories from the set of Torchwood Miracle Day, and how did you get involved with that?
I auditioned for Torchwood Miracle Day. I didn't know anything about it. I arrived on the set, and within an hour, I found it to be really a good. You can tell it was a good set. People were fun. Nobody was taking themselves too seriously. I just really enjoyed the process and doing the show. I'm sorry to hear that the writer's partner is ill to the point that he's not writing anymore. I mean, the partner of the writer is not writing anymore. But hopefully the show will be done again. I don't know if it will. Yes, yes.
Well, moving to Star Trek and My Little Pony, you played the role of Discord, and now you're getting immersed by the brony culture. I want to ask you, who's your favorite pony?
I don't even know. It's so self-evident. Yes. Yes.
I used to do voices for My Little Pony toys and games, and I was wondering if you have any tips for people who want to be actors.
Oh my gosh. Do I have any tips for people who want to be actors? Well, acting is a physical sport. And there was a survey that they did a number of years ago. I think it was in Germany or maybe it was in Europe, all told. They wanted to see if there was any sort of through line between the top tier violin players, the mid violin players, and the hobbyist violin players. And they discovered that there was. Absolutely, unequivocally, there were no exceptions. If you were a hobbyist, you had only spent 10,000 hours practicing. If you were a middling player, you had spent 15 to 20. And all of the top players had spent 25,000 hours practicing. Okay? So the notion that things come easily is a notion that we have unfortunately sort of fostered, perhaps in this country. The notion of celebrity, the notion of it's all easy, you know, it should be easy and whatever. It actually applies to acting. Acting is a much bigger, you know, I always think when I think of acting, I think of the Statue of Liberty. Give me your tired, your poor. Give me your, you know, your C and D student, your F student. Give me your, you know, the kid who didn't, you know, do well in much of anything, and you can still come under the umbrella of acting. That's true, but acting, you have to continue to do it. I started out, I got into acting mostly because I had flunked out of law school, well, not law school, but 2 schools. And the problem was at the time is that people said, back in the Pleistocene when I was going to school, that I was stupid. And in point of fact, I had a thing that was just beginning to be understood, which was being dyslexic. I couldn't read. Well, I struggled with reading. So I was very fortunate in the case that I had a teacher in this school, which was a little private school for wayward kids, and the next step was military school. Okay, I had a teacher, and we used to do wonderful projects. I mean, my class was made up of 19 kids, okay, so, you know, the senior class of 19 kids. And he would come in and he would do, we're going to do the Mozart's Marriage of Figaro. I'm like, you know, and he would make us do it. And we're going to sing the Messiah, you know, Handel's Messiah. And one day he came in and he said, we're going to do, it was in April, we're going to do Henry V. And he said, Delancey, you're going to play Hal. And I had to read Henry V, Shakespeare's Henry V, and I had to learn it. And when I did it, everybody went, wow, you're really good at this. And it's the first time that anyone had ever said that to me in school, ever, on any level. So I just, you know, like a moth to the flame, I just went that direction. You know, I think that I would have been good at other things, but I went in that direction. And that's when I went, when I decided I have to learn how to read. So I began practicing. And I practiced and practiced, and I read out loud. And my first girlfriends, who I'm still in touch with one of them, said, John, do you remember that you would have me sit there and you would read out loud to me? But it's practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. And if you're not acting, you know, when I used to teach acting, I used to explain to the people I was teaching, I said, acting is taking material, you know, putting it into a pretend mode with the scene work and what have you. There's an artistry and what have you. Acting is not acting out. Acting is not going to the grocery store and buying your fruits and vegetables like an actor. That's not acting. Acting is working with text and material. So, okay, next. Yes?
What is your favorite color?
What's my favorite comic?
Color.
Color? Oh, I used to hate green. I think it's because my mother used it so much. But of late, I've begun to really like it. We're redoing our house, and I'm finding myself going, we just need a real thin wash of green. I want to bring the green from the outside in. So right now, green is my favorite color. Yes?
I want to ask about when you were on Breaking Bad. What was that experience like?
There are a few shows that are really good, and you know them right off the bat. And Breaking Bad is one. And what makes it really good, first and foremost, is the writing. Actors can only elevate themselves so far above mediocre writing. You just cannot get much further, much higher beyond that. But when you have brilliant writing, you're sort of swept away with it. You are in the street, so it's so much easier to be good. That's one. So the writing. The second part is that the attention to detail. They will spend a great deal of time getting it right. And this reminds me of something, which is that when you see a movie that isn't quite up to speed, you have every reason to be upset with that. They have had, in most instances, months, if not years, to prep that. They've had a lot of time. Television shows do not have that type of time. It is extraordinary, the level of production that some television shows are able to achieve. And Breaking Bad is one of them. Yes?
I was just curious, aside from your own work, obviously, what kinds of TV shows or movies do you like?
I'm not a big watcher of television shows or movies or anything else.
Books?
What do you do?
A relaxing day at home.
I read a lot. And I listen to, I love listening to the teaching company lectures a lot. Where you can get a lecture. I love someone who's going to say, I'm going to tell you everything I know. You go, Just get a comfortable chair.
Good answer.
I love that. I just love that. I love watching documentaries. And my biggest obsession is sailing. Sailing. And but I never. Also back then, when I wasn't reading and flunking and what have you, they pulled the television out. My parents pulled the TV out of the house. So I didn't really grow up with the culture. I never had the culture of making a date with a television set, ever. One of the things in which I just love now, although it's going to destroy the industry, is that if something does come up, one of my sons will say, you've got to watch such and such. To be able to go on Netflix or to be able to go somewhere and watch all of them in a row is just great. Just great. But I don't know how they're going to pay for television shows that way. I mean, the only model that we really have is either, pay-per-view or commercials. So, and I don't ever watch commercial television, ever. But I never did. So, yes?
That if I had to go to work with my mother, as much as I love her, I'd probably kill her in about the first 2 hours. So when you got to work with your son on Voyager, what was that like?
Well, that's sort of an interesting question, because an actor, going back to being an actor and what have you, actors, especially actors who come out of the theater, know that there's a responsibility beyond themselves. The show must go on, period. So you let that happen. You do everything you can to lean into the scene, lean into the show, just to make that happen. But you do it in such a way that you don't give up your own sort of integrity. And I don't mean integrity like moral integrity, but the integrity of the character you're playing or what have you. So if I were on a show, I'm always on a show where it's somebody else, and while I might see them struggling or something's going on, and while I'm empathetic about it, I still don't give up my end of it, okay? Because I can't. I have to perform my part as well. With my son, it was a different experience because I wanted so much for him to have a good time. I knew there's a lot of pressure. He started out like a little like that, which we all feel that way. I mean, those of us who've been doing it. And then he really grew into it. And I mean, but I was giving up my performance for him. At least that's how I felt. I wasn't drawing power in this way. I was letting it go. I was always like that. So that was the distinction. That was what was going on with playing with my son. Yes.
Why do you think Star Trek is staying around for so long when a lot of other TV show series just disappear?
Well, wonderful question. Why do I think Star Trek has stuck around so long while other television series have disappeared? I just was asked to write the foreword, actually, to a new, wonderful dictionary for Star Trek. I think that Star Trek, I think that Gene Roddenberry created a show. He had no idea that this would be taking place 25, 35 years ago. He created the show at the perfect time for the fans to do something, the people who love the show, to do something that had up until now not really been done, certainly in the world and in the genre that he was in. And that is that he built it and they came. Okay? And they created a community. And it was a community that said, the world could be, the notion of the show is that the future could be better through science and technology, through acceptance and tolerance, you know, through those that stuff, and the community took that and really ran with it. And now what I see is that I see somebody your age and your mom and dad who probably introduced you to this, and then their parents who very well might have introduced them. So I'm now seeing 3 generations who can sit there and watch a show and all 3 get something different out of it and yet be able to communicate this way, which is really quite extraordinary. Yes?
You've done a lot of guest appearances and watched single and multiple episodes on other series. Is there some series that you would want to have a permanent character, or are you just done with television in general?
Am I done with television in general, and are there other things I'd like to do? You know, I'm sort of at the age now where I'm actually more interested in what I call tasty morsels. I don't really need to do it. I want to do things that are interesting. That's all. What's that?
I like Alien Voices.
Alien Voices is a great example. Leonard and I did that. Leonard Nimoy and I had a company called Alien Voices. We did that for 4 years. We did that. We had a wonderful time creating those shows. And then we got into having to sell the show. Sell them. I mean, literally go, you know, here are, you know, whatever, 2,700 units of this and stuff like that. And we looked at each other one day and we went, well, we're not really salesmen. There are people who do this far better than we do and enjoy it. And this is not what we enjoy. So let's stop doing it. I know you have to be in a position to be able to do that. But in my life, in my work, I'm always freelance. Everything's freelance. There is no net. So I'm used to that type of, I'm used to operating that way. So I go around looking for tasty morsels. This documentary, I've never done a documentary before. I've watched tons of documentaries. I recognize that the Brony community was a very sort of unusual community. I mean, at first blush, you have to say, 20-year-old guys watching a cartoon intended for 10-year-old girls. What is that about? But you have to go one step beyond that and look into it and realize, actually coming back a little bit to your question, is that they live in a society now where what is there for 20-year-old guys who are not going, who don't actually want to play shoot 'em up games on video or all of the other, you know, pretty violent stuff that there is. I mean, what is there for those little geeky, little nerdy, for which I consider myself, and frankly, all of you are. What is there? And that they are willing to brave the ridicule, to go back to a show, extract from that show certain notions about how life should go, to be kind, to be generous, to be loyal, to be, you know, friendly, to be, you know, like that, and to live that. I thought, well, there's something here, and it reminds me a lot about the early Star Trek crowd. And what I love, what people don't seem to know or remember about the early Star Trek crowd is that when Star Trek was done in '65 or whatever it was, you know, science fiction was first of all, at best it was boys' literature, and it, you know, and usually it was considered as pulp trash. Okay, but the world was looking for a new canvas. Westerns were that canvas had been, the story of, human relationships had been told on that canvas so much that the world was looking for a new canvas. And in plops this thing. Well, when the show ended, it wasn't guys who brought it back. It was women who brought it back, who got together in, dare I say, coffee clutches, and then, restaurants, and then, living rooms, and said, well, we've got to see more, we've got to see more. And they're the ones who created the writing campaign that brought it back. Well, I thought, well, this is interesting, because My Little Pony Friendship is Magic has been embraced by these 20-year-old guys, which is so unusual, and it has infused this show with a new energy and a new dynamic. So, going back to Tasty Morsels, I went, oh, well, I could spend some time in this world. Not a lot of time. I mean, I don't want to live in the world. I don't want to be eating this for years. But I could spend 6 months in this world and do something which I think the documentary that we've created is going to really give them space and give them, and it affirms what they're doing. And then that'll be it, and I'll look for something else. Yeah?
I was just wondering, when you shot the episode Q Who, where the Borg were introduced, did you know that your character Q was introducing the Borg, and they were going to be this massive, kind of archish character?
I know all of us. No. I mean, maybe the writers did, but they don't. I didn't need to. No, I didn't. Or I don't remember if I did. Yes, in the corner. Yes.
Given that you've now played two more or less all-powerful characters, Q and Discord, one that's kind of good-ish, one that's very evil, what to you was more fun, being good or evil?
The reason that the characters that I play, and I have played a lot of characters who are not, so nice or whatever, is that I don't play them either as good or evil. All right? I don't think even people as monstrous as Hitler looked in the mirror in the morning and said, how evil can I be today? He thought he was doing good. Okay. I play villains in a way as if they were heroes, to the extent that I want to make sure that the audience, at the end of the play or the episode or what have you, goes, I understood his point of view. I didn't understand. I didn't agree with the way in which he did it or he behaved or what have you. But I do understand his point of view, and I think that that's important in terms of giving any of these characters depth. So I don't approach them from good or evil. I just approach them from. I try to fracture and make them, have more resonance than that. So, yes, yeah.
I was wondering, when you worked with Richard D. Anderson, when you go with Legend, and
a little louder.
The disaster of Legend, when all the sets burned down, where do you think that show would have ended up in everything that you done?
Where do I think Legend would have ended up? What's that?
Where do you think it would have gone?
Yeah, okay, I understand. I did a show called Legend, and probably most of you didn't see it, but it was really a wonderfully written show. And it was sort of one of the first steampunk shows that there was. And I played a character called what did I play? Bartok. But Bartok was very closely aligned to Tesla, Nicholas Tesla. And the person who wrote that show was Michael Piller, who wrote Star Trek. He was smart, it was a really great show. Unfortunately, it was given to a new network, UPN, not to be confused with UPS or something like that. And what happens oftentimes when a new head of a studio comes in, they will simply get rid of all the shows that they have and bring in all the shows that they want. Well, that took place with us. They did not have the clout back then, UPN, to be able to say, this is a show that's on at whatever, 9 o'clock at night every Tuesday. It was on at 2 in the morning, at 8 o'clock in the morning, and the affiliates were just putting it on. So it didn't last. And it was really well reviewed. The fans who saw it loved it. And we were really blindsided when they canceled it. So I think it would have been a very successful show, but it couldn't live under those sorts of in that environment. Yes.
The chemistry you had with Patrick Stewart was really quite rare, I think. Was that something which you two saw coming, and when you see him now, do you still have that connection? You still feel that?
The chemistry I had with Patrick was, what did you say? Was
rare.
Rare?
I think so.
I don't know. Well, okay.
I think it was one of the best in TNG.
The two of us, the reason that in TNG, the reason that worked well is that it was clearly two A-types who were going against each other. One of the reasons that I don't think that Q and Janeway worked as well, even though I'm very friendly with Kate, is because they were so concerned that there might be some sort of she might exude some sort of romantic interest. So here with Patrick, it was clearly who's on top, who's going to win, and both of us had the verbal skill above and beyond just what was written, but also to be able to deliver it, that we were able to use that. And so, yes, it was a good relationship in that respect. Very good. Yeah. Yes?
What is Discord's backstory?
What is Discord's backstory? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, my experience with Discord is sort of an unusual one, and that is that I got a call, and they said, there's an offer for you to go and do My Little Pony. Are you interested? What is My Little Pony? It's a cartoon. Will send me the material. And in reading the material, I went, oh, wow, this is very well written. And for me, that's, the person was asking about that. That's all I need. Well written, right? I can do something with this. There was an audition that they wanted me to go to tomorrow, Monday, and they sent me the material. And I think it was very well written, and I said no. So that's how it worked. I did it. I prepared it. And then I forgot about it. I spent probably about 2 hours the night before. I spent probably 2 hours in the recordings booth, and then I forgot it. And 3 months later, I went down to my computer in my office, and it was filled with maybe many hundreds of emails. And I'm reading the emails, I'm going, what is this? I'm reading this, and I'm going, My Little Pony, My Little Pony. So I called up to my wife and I said, what do you know about My Little Pony? She said, well, it's a cartoon that you voiced about 3 months ago. It's a cartoon for little girls. I said, well, it isn't little girls who are writing it. So haven't had much time to think about the backstory, okay? And that's, I think, the only one I've done. I don't know. So, I did one more, actually, after that. And I don't know if that's ever got it or not. It hasn't? No. Okay, yes. Probably the thing, and you know what? You'll never see it because it was a play, but you can read it. And I would highly recommend that you read it because everything in it, every word that comes out of my mouth, I believed it, which is really unusual, is George Bernard Shaw's Man and Superman, including the Don Juan section. I really recommend that you read that book. The lady behind you.
I'm curious, you played Q in 3 of the series that I know of, and we know Q like messed with the crews of Next
Debbie does the Enterprise also. God, it's not 11 at night. It's 11.
Yeah. I don't know how it was different doing Deep Space Nine, where instead of the captains were, trying to fight for control with you, Cisco kind of just told you to bug off.
Yeah.
And it's not like interesting to have Q just be told to go away and be ignored a little bit.
I didn't think the best things about when the character worked absolutely the best is when it was about big philosophical questions and not about whether Q loved Bosch or fighting with Cisco or any of that stuff. So I don't consider that to be a particularly brilliant episode. Yes. Yeah. Oh.
I was, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, seeing as how you have clearly expressed a French background, were you even considered for the role of Picard?
Was I? No, I was not considered for the role of Picard. No. Yes.
Do people ever come up to you on the? Oh wait, was that not me?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Do people ever come up to you on the street and ask you to do impossible things because you're Q?
I've told this story before. For those of you who haven't heard it, I was walking down the street in New York, and it was around twilight, and there, the blocks are sort of short, and I got up onto my side, and then I saw a guy also coming up towards me, and I could, you're sort of standing, and I went, wow, that's a big, really scary, guy over there. And so we're continuing to walk, and I looked again, and he's looking directly at me. And I went, oh, Christ. So I moved this way, and he moves this way. And we're getting closer and closer. And I move this way, and he moves this way. Until finally he's right in front of me, and he's this close. And now I have my hands out of my pocket, my knees are bent, I'm ready for the fight or flight mode, I'm ready to go, and I'm thinking, I'll get mugged. But, and he comes up and he goes, are you Q? I said, yeah. Can you bring people back from the dead? I said, only people I like. Cool. So I have had some unusual. Okay. Somebody who did, yes, whoever it was who was, yeah.
I heard that you played Agent Dark Booty on Invader Zim, and I heard also that Invader Zim is very likely to return due to the campaign Operation Head Bitches. Can you talk about your experience on the show, and would you return to it?
You were Dark Booty?
That's what I was going to say. actually don't know that. You know, the deal is this. I want to be minimizing this stuff. But when you spend a lot of time on something, you tend to remember it. When it goes by in about 2 hours, in what, 1990?
99, 2000.
Okay. I don't know. Honestly, I don't remember. So the answer to you is yes, absolutely, I will be coming back. I'm a huge fan of the show. All of the episodes. Yes.
So since you were on Star Trek, you get to see a lot of Gene Roddenberry's ideas of technology and the changes for the future. What's your opinion on the fact that I have a phone here that can do exactly what a Star Trek pad used to do back in the day? Or the fact that a flip phone from a communicator or something like that? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think that that's where, what I think that's one of the great lures to me of science fiction, and that is that that you can dream it, and if you can dream it, there's a possibility that you will one day be able to make it or have it happen. I mean, that's what I loved. My first book, actually the first book I read, was Mysterious Island. I think I was about 12. It was the first book that I was able to get completely through, and it informed me in a way that's still to this day important. I don't have, do any of you know what the story is? It's Jules Verne. It's a bunch of guys, Civil War. They jump into a balloon. They get to an island, and they have nothing. They have nothing. But because they know so much, they're able to create a society. And you know, I just remember reading that, and then you know the guy would say, "Oh, there's a lot of iron ore in that you know mound of dirt over there. We'll be able to make hammers and tools." I just put the book down and just was like, oh, to know that and to be able to have that. So I love that part of it. I love the fact that you could go, you know, in a TV show, you know, you could go, but you know, you've got high cholesterol. One of these days, maybe I won't be alive, but one of these days that's going to happen. Oh yeah, you have something. You know. So I love that. So I'm delighted. Have I answered your question? It's the part that I heard. Yeah, all the way in the back.
When you think about the new Star Trek movies, the J.J. Abrams.
I think they were great, or they are. It was great, and the new one will probably be. I think it was really time to give it a new style and what have you. It was time to move out of the teleplay and into the movie. I mean, and there's a big difference. You know, a lot of chit-chatting, teleplay, and more movie style. So I think it's terrific. Yes, sir.
Yeah, since we're on the subject of TV shows, do you prefer less reality TV or more reality TV that seems to be on?
I'm not a big reality TV fan.
No.
Mostly because, I mean, you know, they could be documentaries about something that's interesting. Documentaries about, what is that person's name? Kim somebody?
Oh.
I couldn't care less about that stuff. It's sort of voyeurism, and I just don't care about that.
Yeah, they seem to forget about the past, which matters on good writing, good TV.
Right. Yes. Yes.
You say you write music, right?
No, I don't write music. I write shows for, which are mostly theatrical shows for symphony orchestras. I've written a show about Mahler and Stravinsky, and for the LA Phil, Mahler, Stravinsky, Beethoven, Prokofiev. For the Cleveland Orchestra, a show on Mozart. I've written new Peer Gynt things, which I did at the National in Washington. National in Washington, in Sydney, Australia. I've done a lot of shows, Midsummer Night's Dream, Romeo and Juliet, Bourgeois Gentleman, at the Ravinia Festival in Chicago. I just was there. I did a new rendition, sort of a new narration for a Magic Flute. So that's what I do. Yeah.
My wife was thrilled when they brought the character of Calliope back to Days of Our Lives. She's wondering if you would be willing to reprise the role of Eugene.
You know, they asked me to do that, and I said no. I said no because I don't think you can go back. We've all gone back to, you know, visit girlfriends or boyfriends and you know, towns and restaurants and, you know, and places, and it's always sort of a disappointment. I think that the fans generally would go, oh my God, he's really old. And it's been 29 years since I left that show. And what am I supposed to do? Act like Eugene? You know, it would be unseemly.
John, we're getting the robots are flashing for about one more question.
Okay, all right. People who I haven't, okay, yes.
When you were done on Margolis on Breaking Bad, do you have any like memories that are like favorite part of that? Or?
Well, I mean, a favorite part. It was a show about. I was the father of a daughter who was a drug addict. Favorite part? It was really sad. It was really sad. Now, there's a technical issue, and that is that how do you maintain that level of involvement? I mean, I have children, so it wasn't hard to be able to substitute and imagine that. But how do you do that over a 12, 14-hour period and stuff like that? There's that. Probably the best thing, and which is the case with all shows, the best thing is that, before I say what the best thing is that, you know, when I first heard about it, I was in Syria. I was in Damascus, Syria. And I was looking, I'm so upset about what's going on in Syria because it was a great place to visit. If you're at all interested in antiquities, oh my gosh, unbelievable. In any case, I was walking around some ruins and somebody turned around and went, oh, you're James' father. For that show. The best thing is that I've had kids come up to me and say, and I didn't ask any more, but I could tell that we were in that sort of zone. Say, you know, I now know how my parents felt with my situation. And I just thought, wow, that's a great, because in that show, in Breaking Bad, I played a character which was very unusual from what I usually play, and that is, I was a true victim of what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. All I knew was that my daughter is a drug addict, and that I was there to help her and to do everything I could to make sure that she was going to be okay. I had no idea what any of the other relationships were, so that my going through those relationships in the show, where other people know, or you, particularly the audience, made it pretty pointed. Yeah. Okay, what else? Yes, sir.
You've played not only a variety of roles, but a variety of mediums, from Q on a regular TV show, voice acting for Discord, or even game voice acting, like in Quantum Conundrum.
And
how different?
And Assassin's Creed, right? Yeah, Assassin's Creed.
And,
I remember that.
How different is it to sort of get into the characters or fit those roles for something so different from actually acting on camera or not?
Okay. Everything has a vibration. Every piece of written material has a vibration. A phone has a vibration. And you have to allow that to speak to you first. And then what you do is add yourself then to it. And you add yourself to it, you have to track not only what is wanted, but also what you consider might be needed, which gets into the really sort of the creative, risk-taking part of making choices. So the medium is not of much importance, at least to me. You know, on stage you have to speak louder. I mean, there's more to it than that, but you have to speak louder. On film, you're talking to somebody who's like right here. So if you were to do this, you know, they'd go, man. You know, film is more about thinking and letting the audience come in to see that thinking. On stage, you're too far away, so you have to sort of physicalize your thinking so that that's communicated. In voiceovers, you have to imagine the world that you are in, which is not usually really particularly well delineated. So you have to imagine it. But these are just, you know, these are things that one picks up. So to me, again, it's the material. Okay, one. But somebody I haven't. Yes.
Have you ever seen the episodes in which you were featured in all of One Friendship Magic?
Have I seen them?
Have you seen the episodes?
I saw the first one, yes.
Okay.
Is there a second one that's come out?
Well, the first one's that you put 2 episodes, 1 part.
Okay, right. I've seen all of that. I've actually seen a fair amount of the show in terms of having to prep for all of this. You know, people have asked me, are you, you know, having said that I don't watch much of anything, I'm not going to all of a sudden try to say to you, oh my God, I watched every episode of My Little Pony. I know that the show is well written, it's well voiced, and it's well animated. And I have watched probably 10 or 15 shows that have been recommended to me to watch. I am less, but having said all that, I'm less interested in the show than I am in the people, in you. I'm less interested in the show than I am in you. That's what it is. Succinct. And why you're interested, and what this means to you. And that's what I know that this documentary is going to be able to articulate in a really nice way. I'm there, and you know, discussions with Mike Brokoff just not yesterday, the day before yesterday. He goes, well, what about this and what about that? And you know, because we had brought it down from like 2 hours to 90 minutes, and I just said, look, 90 minutes is about as much as most audiences are going to be willing to take. We will never tell the whole story. We just can't. But what we can do is really give a really nice entry point, really be able to open the door for people who go, I want to know more, by all means. By all means. So we're still trying to, we're making a documentary which while I believe the initiated will go, oh my God, that's great, but there should have been more. We're making primarily a documentary for people who say things like, bronies are a bunch of homosexuals who are living on food stamps and disability in their parents' home so as to be able to watch cartoons all day. No, that's not. That's not it. That's not it. And that's the thing that got me angry enough that a new fan base that was centered around actually being nice and good and tolerant and accepting and all that type of stuff was being put down by people who just, knocked that out. They could say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and they without knowing what they were talking about. And I just went, these people could be helped. On a more uplifting note, one last question. One, yes.
A lot of actors end up directing later on. Is that something you're looking into?
I've directed a fair amount. I direct operas. I used to direct a fair amount of operas. And I would direct more. I enjoy directing. I would direct more. The problem is that the world is, the arts is just being compressed. So that there are a lot of directors who that's all they've done. And, to have an actor come in to direct, it's sort of like having a director come in to act. You kind of go, so I enjoy directing. All right, it's been great. Thank you so much.